Hey y'all, welcome back to Clay to Canopy, the show where I attempt to make just about everything from the ground up. My first vision board is coming along nicely. I have a lot of the detail added in. I'm just missing a few components, sorting out the English kitchen garden and putting together the backyard. But I think it's time I start turning my attention to the second board with the cabins. So today I'm going to work on the model of the cabin with the aid of the computer and the Cricut. So come on, let's do this. So the first thing I did was determine what I wanted my basic frame of the house to look like. And you can go online and find all kinds of free patterns. You can start with that as a base. I have assembled many paper house models, and you can buy books of paper house models. You cut them out and assemble them. Life before teaching was working at a gallery and dealing with packing and shipping. And I have built a lot of crates in my day and custom boxes. In my head, I kind of already know the layout of how to deal with putting some sides together. The first thing I did was measure that square in the center, the floor plan of what I wanted. I knew that I wanted to have an A-frame building, but I didn't want to have an A-frame that went completely to the ground. I knew I was going to be installing a second rectangular box coming off of the main house. From there, I then went ahead and measured out my lines that I had left over. So the line here and the line here, which would give me my rectangular measurement. And I also gave myself a tiny bit of overhang because I wanted that roof to just have a little bit of extra space coming around it. The next thing I need to work out is that square building that I know that I want to come off of the side. And I held up a piece of paper, took a guesstimate, and then started with that as my starting point and adjusted my angle until I was happy with it. Now the other thing I was not happy with was this gap in between here where my finger is. So I took the initial shape and adjusted it to compensate for that gap that I'm trying to eliminate there. So let me first determine how much space I want to have in here. I think I thought about 1.5 inches with scale that I'm using that makes it 15 feet. Yeah, 1.5 inches I think is gonna be good. The base is 2.5 by 2.5, which translates to, in real size, 25 feet by 25 feet. So it's oversized 2-car garage. And my workspace now is about 15 feet deep by, I want to say about 18 feet wide is the space I'm working in now. It's adequate for doing what I'm doing, but I'm tripping over myself out there with having multiple types of working mediums going on. And I think a little bit more room would be perfect, especially if each one was going to be isolated to one craft per building. Then I need another rectangle to close in the back. What I need is this height and that width. So here's my somewhat clean photocopy of that shape. I'm going to set that aside. I'm going to deal with that later. These are just a starting point for me, so I'm going to be making some adjustments to them, but at least this way I don't have to go back and retrace this out all over again to make the adjustments that I'm going to be making. And here's the first adjustment. I could have drawn in little tabs that just kind of fold over. And because I didn't do that, that doesn't leave me anywhere to glue this piece together. I'm gonna make that adjustment on the photocopy that I made, but before I cut this out, and I probably should have done this before I made the photocopy, I'm gonna do it on here. I only have 2 sections that this is gonna be gluing to. I can put in tabs here. It's a sliver of extra paper that's gonna go in there that allows glue it up somewhere. I'm gonna make another marking at 1/4 inch. And then what that's going to be is from corner to inside. This will make sense once I start assembling. This comes with the practice of having assembled a lot of little paper houses and little paper models. I would not recommend you attempting to do your own paper model until you've at least assembled a pre-made one. Print out one or order a book of one. I have a stack of books by this one artist that I absolutely love. They are just these cut and assemble books. He was originally from the East Coast, did a lot of work with the New England Victorian buildings and such. You cut out the pieces and there's instructions on how to assemble them. So these are some of the least complicated ones that he makes. He makes these really elaborate ones, and they have become the base structure for a lot of the pieces that I put into some of my gallery work. I did not cut up the original books. I made some photocopies and then used the photocopied paper versions. So I have had quite a lot of practice with doing this. It's not that you need to have a lot of practice before you take on your own. I would recommend that you at least assemble one house before you attempt to create your own. When you get to your assembly, you're gonna probably want to be making your models out of cardstock. You will want one of these things. This one that came in a set of 3 from the craft store. I think I got it at Michael's. 3 of them with different size ball tops. I also have found these at the Dollar Tree, but you're not gonna have the varying sizes. What it is a scoring tool. When it comes to the cardstock, it's gonna be really handy. If you are working straight up with construction paper or cardstock, something a little thicker, you might want one of these to help with the folding. And what it does is you just take it and run it along the lines that you're going to be folding on, and a little bit of an impression to make your folding easier. Since this is so thin because it is copy paper, that pen did the work for me. There are my little tabs, got those in, and my sides are ready to get folded. And now when I put these up here, I can stick a little bit of glue on those spots and I am good to go as far as the glue up goes. That's the purpose of those tabs. I think I can cut part of the flap out of this and let that be part of the roof. I need to help this along, so I'm gonna glue up this side just because I need to get it fixed in place. I'm just using a glue stick since this is just copy paper. I have marked out the roof. This will probably need to be elongated, but I can easily make that part of the pattern. That will help me snug that up against the building, and that would fold there. So this is the finicky hard part, you know, you're just trying to work out how you're gonna deal with putting this together. Another option is to make a model out of cardboard and then measure your pieces from there to paper. Oh, my phone is going off like crazy today. It is Christmas Day and I have a bunch of people yelling at me because I am working and not taking the day off. But the holidays are like the best time for me to get work done, because when you are working a full-time job and then trying to get work done on your own on the side, basically all I have a holiday time to get the biggest chunk I can get done. And for me, I don't know, I'm not living if I'm not in the studio and I'm not making. Anyhow, I see the problem. I see. All right, my wall is not high enough. So I'm hitting up against this side wall, so I gotta adjust that, which means I'm gonna cut into my pattern a little bit more. I probably should have measured. Measure this, I think this is 1 inch. So we've got 1 inch there, and this should have been 1 inch from the bottom. But now I glued the thing together. Bang. All right, we got a landing point. It's looking pretty good. So I need to add at least 1 inch. So whatever this tab is should be the same measurement of this. These are going to be my final adjustments. I need to make a pattern with 2 and 3/4 inch tab that way. So this is going to extend. This has to have tabs added to it the way I added tabs to this one. And now I have completely changed that angle, so I need to make sure that I adjust for that in my paper model. So I'm going to take care of those 3 things, and by the time I am done, I should have 3 clean pieces of paper. One that is going to be the roof section, one for the first part of the building, and one for the second part of the building. So for this tutorial, I am primarily going to be using Photoshop and Illustrator. Cricut does come with its own software, and I have seen tutorials on different softwares that are out there, and I've tried a bunch of different ones and just found that using a combination of Photoshop and Illustrator is just so much easier. Photoshop I will be using to clean up the picture, make my corrections, and then in Illustrator it's just a couple click buttons and it automatically converts it into an SVG file, which is what the Cricut prints out of. You could just take that JPEG, upload that directly to the Cricut, Cricut, those results have not always been the greatest. I've had to do additional cleanup once I've gotten to that point. I found a cleaner cut, a cleaner file, uploaded in SVG already done. Once I was happy with the final layout of my designs, I scanned those into my computer and I scanned them as a JPEG. So now we're going to take a look at the computer part of this process once you have the JPEG. You could take a picture and then just send yourself the picture, but when it comes to dealing with straight lines, scanning is going to be your better bet of making sure that things are proportioned the way that you need them to be and not distorted. So in Photoshop, I've opened up one of my pages. This is for the secondary part of the house. I'm going to zoom in here. And the very first thing I'm going to do is clean up anything that the scanner might have picked up that I did not want. So any of these bits of like little overages where the scanner was dirty and had these little spots on them. Use my eraser tool. This is just going to give me a cleaner starting point. So everywhere that I have a fold line in, I made the mistake of not making this a dotted line. I need to make sure that I tell the computer which lines are going to be for cutting. And in this case, I do not want to cut this dotted line. If I leave this dotted line in, when it goes to the Cricut, it's going to cut anywhere that I see a black line. My mistake in the making of this is definitely not a cut I want to have made here. But I also want to leave some marker lines, so I'm going to shrink this a bit, and I'm going to have it do just a tiny bit of slicing along this line, but not a whole lot, just enough so that I have a little tiny impression of where I want to do the fold. And for now, because I'm going to be running this as a tester first, I'm going to just leave those few dots here and see and make if this is going to be enough. If it is tweaking off too much in the cut, I will then delete some more. But these are just reference dots, so I know what I'm folding against when it comes time. Alright, and this looks pretty good. The next thing I want to do is to invert this. I need the blank space on the white to be filled in with black, and I need the black lines to become white. What we're going to do here, select all, image, adjustment, invert. And then I want to deselect all. I'm going to use my selection tool to select the entire bit here that we have going on. I want to make sure I get everything. I think we're okay. From here, edit, copy, and then I'm going to open up a new document, which should be clipboard size to what that is, and then edit and paste. Now I have the blackened lines and my tick marks, and I'm going to save this, save as a new JPEG. And I don't want this as a Photoshop image, I want it as a JPEG. Go ahead and save that. And then you're going to open up Illustrator. You're going to open your file. You're going to want to select your object, go into Object, Image Trace, Make and Expand. This is going to give you a fat outline. From here, you got to get rid of some stuff. You want to go into your layers, and you want to get rid of anything that's unnecessary. First thing you do is figure out what is necessary, and it's usually anything that has an image on it in the little window here. If I click the unview, it should go away. That means that that image is going to be the cutout. I don't think this is necessary. I think there's a little dot in here somewhere. Anything else that is not necessary, you're going to want to delete. So I'm going to just hold down my shift, highlight all of those, delete those out. Delete. And yeah, it was that little dot there. I don't need that. Now I can view this. This is what I want right here. I'm going to go ahead and save this as an SVG. Save as. I don't want compressed. I just want a regular SVG. Save, and we're good to go. This should be ready to be uploaded directly into your Cricut software. People always have this debate over is it Cricut or Cricut, but the emblem looks like a little bug, so in my opinion, I'm guessing they're expecting you to pronounce it Cricut. So anyhow, I just opened a new project. I'm going to upload that file. As you can see, I was working on a greeting card most recently. SVG. I want to make sure you're grabbing the right file. If you grab the SVG, it should have cut out everything that you needed to, and then you can upload Add to my canvas, and bang, it's there. This is where you might want to make any kinds of adjustments that you got going on. These squares are supposed to be your onboard ruler. It's gonna cut all around the outside of, and then it's gonna cut these bits here. When I did the whole highlighting thing, I did this in a very crude, quick way in Photoshop when I did the selection. It kind of cut off some of my lines. So you can be more careful about doing that. I'm gonna run a tester. If it's too janky, then I will go back into Photoshop. Take my pen, 6 pixels, and I want this in white. So I click, hold down the shift, carry over to the other line, click again, and I have a nice solid line. And you know, this really depends on how much time you want to spend and how many of these you're going to be making. If you're making a whole ton of these, then you probably want to spend the time making sure that these lines are nice and clean. But if it is just a quick little whatever that you're mocking up, maybe it's not necessary for you to do that. This time when I select it, it'll pick up that line and give me a crisper, cleaner cut. So this is something that does take time. Again, you have to come in and fiddle with all of that. My Cricut design space is opened up on my desktop, and I have black cardstock fixed to my light grip Cricut cutting mat. I have a Cricut Maker, that's what I'm going to be cutting this on. This would work if you are using a Silhouette or a Brother. I do not know what those interfaces look like, but I know that it's very similar as far as the cutting goes. From the Cricut design space, you can change your things here to basic cut, wavy, perforated, drawing, pen, engrave. If you wanted to, you could make a secondary file for where those tick marks that we're cutting into and have that do the embossing line. But that would require this like double stacking thing, and I'm trying to do this as the simplest way possible. It is a total another setup. If anybody's interested in seeing me do that kind of a process, then please comment and I will make a separate video about layering your different types of cuts. But for now, this is just going to be a basic cut. Go ahead and turn my maker on. I'm going to click make it. And I always have it on a black mat board. You can change the color of the mat board. You can change your colors of the thing you're cutting. It'll change the background of the mat, but at least it's a little easier to see. Alright, so you have some rulers here, and it never cuts directly against the line. It always gives you a bit of a border. If you are doing multiples of things, and you mess with the way that it puts it on the board, like for example, when I tried to cut out a bunch of those holly leaves for the wreath I was making, I altered the way that it went onto the mat board so I could get the most out of the paper. But when you do that, you disrupt the machined nature of the way that it wants to do the cutting, and it can increase the cut time on your pieces. If I turned this and twisted this at an angle and it wasn't against a straight line, it makes it more work for the cutter. More work means in the long run you'd probably end up with wearing out your blade much sooner. So just keep that in mind. Yes, you'll be saving material, but at the same time you also might be wearing down your blade. The blades tend to be more expensive than your 10-cent cardstock if you're able to get it on sale. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and click browse my materials. Cardstock, we're just going to go with craft cardstock. And it's telling me to make sure I have my fine point blade loaded, which I do. And then I just roll this under my roller, hit the arrow key, wait for it to adjust, and then hit the little Cricut symbol. And now it's going to do my cutting. You okay, little bean? Endless cat drama around here. Alright, once it's done the cut, a lot of people like to check to make sure that it cut all the way through, and you can just take your wheedle tool and make sure you lift it, but I can just tell by looking at it that it looks like it's going to be just fine. Eject it from the machine. If it was not cut all the way through, you can go ahead and hit the Cricut button before you eject it again, and it'll take a second pass to make sure that you have a full cut. Let's get this popped off and see what we got going on. This is the wrong way of doing this. You really want to pull the background off first, but since I'm trying to use this again, just leave that there. And now my perforated spaces should give me, yes, somewhere to fold against. Lovely. And then I can go ahead and glue that up, and that is this part here. Look at that, pretty nice. So I'm going to repeat this process for this piece and for the roof. Alright y'all, so after many nitpicky adjustments, I think I am finally happy with the layout of these pieces. This is going to be the roofing, which is a little bit textured and it is a bit shiny And then I have this stuff that is fake wood. It's just a paper that looks like fake wood. So I've been spending some time cutting out all of my bits and pieces. All right, so we got the graveyard of progression here. This was my first paper model. This was the first printout of that. And then I adjusted this section, just looked proportionately wrong. I had to go and whip out the measuring tape and figure out if 15 feet was enough, which is what I ended up with here. And then this went through a few more adjustments, adding in some tabs until I got to this, and even this was a little bit failed because I messed up by putting in an extra perforation there. But this ended up being the happy one, and I now have my pieces of cardstock cut and ready to go. So let's get these out of the way. And as I was cutting these out, I kept altering the position of the paper because I wanted to make sure that the wood grain varied. I kind of like the idea of them not being fully resolved yet. For what this needs to be as far as the vision board goes, I don't think it's necessary to put in all that kind of detail on these since there's such a large number of them. I also got to move on, y'all. I have spent way too much time on working on this vision board and need to get on to my larger projects. Not that this has not been fun, and it has been quite relaxing for me to take a break and do this thing, but I really need to get going on the next environment, which will be airing for y'all hopefully sometime in the spring. The Woodland Feast, which is the next environment, and that needs just as much time and pre-planning as the other environments I have done. I need to get a move on, is my point. The one downfall of super glue. Always glue your fingers before you glue the thing you're trying to glue. Oi. I'm improperly scoring for those of you who are paper crafters. This one should have been scored the other direction, but I think it'll survive. All right, and that is one. And I only have 8 more to go. Standing a little higher than I should be because I have to stand at my desk since someone has taken my chair. The chair stealing that goes on around here. But the inside desk area is far too small for me to put 2 chairs in. I had 2 chairs at one point. It was awful. So now when I am told to move, I just move. And I just stand because it's just the way it is. Right before I began filming this section, I was told to move in not such a kind way. And once I put this roof on, I will show you the culprit. I'm wondering if I should have put in windows. I'm not going back. I'm gonna have to just accept it as it is. It is what it is. It's gonna stay this way. All right, there's 2. 2 out of 8. No, 9. 2 out of 9. Y'all, there's my chair, and there's the culprit. When he hears my voice, he flicks his tail. What you doing, Bubba Man? Bubba Man? Watch. Bubba Man. Alright y'all, I'm going to leave it here. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. And stick around to watch this vision board all come together.